God, you stupid ass I hate Dune buggies.
Oh, I'm so awkward.
Lower, lower, lower. All right, we're gonna work on this Dune buggy. I really hate working on these things. There's no space inside to do anything. And of course, this doesn't have brakes and I have to do a lot of stuff under the dash, which is not going to be fun. And really the only reason I agreed to work on this particular one is because it's got a cool history. It's been in the owner's family for like 30 years. It's kind of a fairly family heirloom piece. And even though they're not my thing, I appreciate the love that they have for this particular Dune buggy. So if there's anything I can do to help them keep it on the road, then I want to do that. And apparently the biggest issue this thing has always had is that it's never had brakes. So we're going to try to sort that out today, and a couple of other very minute things as well, but the brakes is the biggest thing. I'm of course going to end up doing this on the floor because not only do I have a 912 on the lift, all the weight on Dune buggies is in the back, and I don't want to turn it into a trebuchet when I put it on the lift, so I'm just going to do it on the ground. I already have some ideas as to what the problem is, so let me see if I can get a good camera angle inside, and I'll show you what I'm going to start with. So one of the things the owner was telling me was that they always seemed to have some difficulty bleeding the system. So the first thing I did was come in here and just kind of push on the brake pedal, and it doesn't have any free play in it at all. I can't feel the push rod hit the master cylinder, which tells me the rod has been adjusted too long, and it's actually keeping circuits inside the master cylinder open, which pretty much stops you from being able to bleed the system. So I don't know if you can see, there's two lock nuts on there. I'm going to try to shorten this rod until I have a little bit of free play, and then I'm just going to try to bleed the system and see if I can get some pedal out of this, because it's got nothing. So I'm going to do that and see if I can get anything out of it. I know that he bought some rear wheel cylinders for it. He's already done one. I got to do the other side. And then I also want to check to see if I'm actually getting fluid to all the wheels, because this car has been sitting for quite some time, and what can happen with the rubber hoses is they rot and they collapse on the inside, and that can stop fluid from coming through. It can also allow fluid through, but it won't allow fluid back, which sometimes can turn into the wheels locking down when you hit the brakes. So I'm going to check that as well. I'll probably take the hoses off and run them into bottles and just press the pedal and see if I get fluid out of any of them. But I'm going to start with this first. So let me see if I can get that rod out, and I'll show you what the whole thing looks like. Obviously, I don't have a lot of room in here to get the camera in and actually do the thing I'm doing, so you're just going to have to use your imagination for parts of this episode. Alright, so I can't actually get the rod out because the return spring for the pedal is what keeps it on, and it's being a real pain in the ass to get off. So I'm just going to try to adjust it in the car a little bit here. All right, so that amount of free play when I start to get resistance should be enough for me to get some pedal out of this. I'm going to do a little bit more just to be safe. So now I'm going to put it up, take the wheels off, and try to bleed it. I think it's also worth mentioning that the 67 and later cars were fitted with what we call a dual circuit master cylinder for the brake system. 66 and older had a single circuit. Now, these master cylinders, the dual circuit master cylinders, can be retrofitted to earlier cars. And if you're replacing the master cylinder on an earlier car, I think safety-wise, it's so much worth putting a dual circuit master in and rerunning the lines a little bit to feed it. Because what the dual circuit master cylinder allows is that if for whatever reason you lose braking front or rear, you will still have the other set of brakes. So like if you lose the rear for whatever reason, you'll still have the front. The dual circuit separates those two braking systems into two of their own units. Whereas a single circuit is the opposite of that. You either get everything or you get nothing. So at least that gives you something to use. So remember, you can retrofit those onto earlier cars. So something I like to do when bleeding brakes on a car for the first time is to just go around and make sure that all the bleeders actually open. Because if they don't, I don't want to be in the middle of trying to bleed something and realize that they won't open. So I'm going to do that, and then we're going to get my my snap-on quick bleeder out. It's chilly today. My snap-on quick bleeder out, and try to get some, of course that's a 7, and try to get some pedal out of this. Oh, all right, I forgot to mention something. Oh, it's always a good idea to make sure your shoes are adjusted properly, because if they're too far out, it'll take too much fluid to open the system. It'll be difficult to bleed. So you want to just go around and make sure everybody's adjusted. I like to adjust it until I genuinely can't turn the drum anymore, and then back it off like one turn. Because that way I'll know it's close. Okay, so I've adjusted the brakes. I have topped off the reservoir. I guess now we're going to try to bleed it. I'm going to close the warehouse door so that you can actually hear me. All right, when you're bleeding, you want to start with the wheel furthest away from the master cylinder, which is the passenger rear. I'm going to put this guy in like that. I'm going to prime this. So it starts puffing at me. Alright, so now it has pressure. I'm going to open this. I'm trying to get a little fluid out. Should be getting something by now. He did warn me that this master cylinder may be bad, or that this hose may be bad, so I'm just going to move on, see, because I know he replaced the other side. I'm going to try to do the other 3 and see if I can't get something to happen. And have some pedal. I was told not to grab the windshield because I'll rip it out of the fiberglass, and I also can't grab the steering wheel because I'll rip it out of the fiberglass. So my crotchety ass has to try to get in here with no hand assist whatsoever. Just fold myself in half. Get my other leg in here. Ah. Okay, parking brakes off. Do we have... It's got some. Okay, so I did have trouble adjusting the fronts. I think those have a lot more to come out. And I wasn't getting any fluid out of the one in the rear. And I've got to do the axle seal back there anyway. So what I'm going to do is replace that rear master cylinder, the rear wheel cylinder. Make sure that I'm actually getting fluid out of the hose as well. And do the axle seal. And then pull the fronts apart and try to free up the adjusters. And then bleed it again and see, because it's holding, it's not sinking, it just feels really spongy. Yeah, okay, that's what we're doing. So cue the montage. Okay, it's now a couple of hours later. I had to Rachel and I had a lunch date with a friend of hers out of town, and now that I've put myself into a pretty significant food coma via fried chicken, I've allowed myself to recuperate some, and we're going to continue on the Dune buggy. So what did I do before I left? I replaced both the rear hard lines and the passenger side hose and the passenger side wheel cylinder. So I've got to bleed it again. I want to see if the pedal comes up a little bit more, and then I will probably pull the front brakes apart to get the adjusters moving a little bit better, and that will hopefully bring the pedal up even higher, but I shouldn't have to bleed it after that. So I'm going to go through the bleeding process again, which you've already seen, so I'm not going to bother filming that. When I go to press the pedal again, I'll get you back in here. But that's the step. All right, I didn't actually have to pull the drums off. I just had to remove the spacers so that I could get the leverage of the screwdriver correct, and it would actually adjust. So now I'm going to hop in and try the pedal again and see how it feels. Okay. Oh yes. Yes, very nice. That's a pedal. That's like a drivable pedal. And it's solid. It's not sinking. This is like at the point where I can test drive it and make sure that it's like good. Okay, I gotta go through the box of parts and see what else it needed. I know that we're putting a vintage speed pedal in. I'm hoping that's something I can do without removing the pedal cluster. All right, well, I guess I did have to take the pedal cluster out to do this. So we're going to be installing a vintage speed pedal kit. I really like these. They're really smooth. They've got a nice roller that goes along the back of this. It's pretty much the same as the factory setup. It's just higher quality components. And it's all really well done. So first thing I'm going to do is remove this guy and then this arm, and then we can start putting all this stuff on. like that. And I gotta get this out because the new one actually bolts in. There we go. And then this guy just has a pin, goes through the back. Almost. Almost. Gotcha. Okay. All right. We need a razor blade and we'll open that kit up. There's a lot of small parts in here, so. Oh, tiny, tiny parts. Oop. All right, so this guy goes here, as I recall, because the cable's going to hook onto that. Right. Okay. Okay. So make sure this is moving nice and good. And then we're going to take this guy. It's going to go right on here. I'm going to do it this way. No, I'm not. I'm going to do it this way. Oh, fuck. Oh. Fucking gloves. All right, I've got 1,000 tiny little screws to put in here, so I'm going to try to do that with these stupid gloves on, and then we'll put the rest of this together. All right, I've got all of these installed, so now I can do this guy. This does not have to be super ultra tight because you still want the pedal to be able to rotate. So I'm just gonna snug it up. Still moves nice, okay. And then, I guess just to show you, kind of get to pick where this goes depending on the tension level. So I'm gonna go with that guy. No, I'm not. I'm gonna go up to the second hole up here to that guy. There you go. Look at that action. Obviously, the throttle return spring on the carburetor will be doing most of the work. This is just sort of an assist. But I find this so much smoother than the factory pedal. It's another day. I've got this back together. I got the pedal cluster in. I think I have the clutch adjusted and the throttle adjusted, which means it's time for a road test, but only if it starts. All right. I'm gonna get somewhere I can panic test it a little bit. Well, can't really keep the camera up, I guess, so I'm going to try a couple of panic stops and see what happens. All right, well, after a few panic stops, it stops. So I'm going to have the customer come, drive it, make sure he's happy with it, and then, you know, move on to the next thing. So I guess that's it for this one. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a like, leave a comment, share with your friends. And we're going to get started on the 912E next, lowering that. So stick around for that fun nonsense.